Hello everyone, welcome to my latest forecast. This one is about the Scorpio Total Lunar Eclipse happening May 15th or 16th, depending upon where you live. My name is Evan Nathaniel Grimm, the founder and lead analyst of Inner Worlds Astrology. Now before I begin, if you want a reading from me, the link to my site is in the description box below. I offer a number of different readings, so check it out. Also, please like this video and subscribe to my content if you want more of it. So we're talking again about the Scorpio moon. This is one of the most intense placements in astrology. I have a Scorpio moon, a number of Scorpio placements, so I feel uniquely qualified to talk about this. So let's begin by just explaining the Scorpio mindset and the Scorpio process and the themes. So Scorpio is about the startling truths that shock us into a new form. But the form is familiar. It is assembled from a unified psychic well that we all draw from. And Scorpios are naturally more attuned to that well, to that layer of existence, although every sign can access it. But during times like this, when we have a Scorpio moon when it's full, this sort of sensation of something lurking beneath kind of bubbles up into the collective. The collective can start to feel the impacts of this within their own psyche. Now, why do we experience these uncomfortable truths or startling truths and these shocks? This is fundamentally about cycles and restarting the cycles. Scorpio and Pluto remind us of the necessity of cycles, the fact that things are not actually linear as we've arbitrarily designed them in our society. There needs to be a process of purification, of purging. And even though that process can ignite fear as we're going through the change, we start to realize that it is, in fact, essential and needed and wanted. So the question during this full moon is, why can't you evolve? Because, we all go through life starting to feel stuck in place and wondering, when is the change going to come? Now, the reason a lot of people cannot evolve is because they're in denial about something buried inside of themselves. You oftentimes refuse to confront a lot of your own insecurities, a lot of your own fears, a lot of your own anger, emotions that were sort of forced downward by the sort of social customs and norms of today. And it's actually a very interesting question. What does a Scorpio moon mean, say, 10,000 years ago versus now? Now, we happen to live in a society of, again, rules, regulations, everything is linear, everything is structured. And so it's kind of, again, ingrained in us from an early age that we have to shut out some of these more embarrassing thoughts and feelings and sensations. And that's where Scorpio comes in. Scorpio says, wait a second. No, we actually have to address those things. We have to confront those things. And we have to uproot them and be aware of them, because we cannot change without those subconscious ingredients. So again, this leads us to the process of change and evolution and regeneration. So that is the only way to really trigger that change, is to be aware of your entirety, of the holistic sort of nature of your psyche. Now, again, cycles require change, metaphorical death, and sometimes literal, and rebirth. It's sort of a fire that purifies. And, again, something sometimes is tempting to latch on to what is familiar. But again, like I said, once you go and you sort of plumb the depths, you realize that this is actually a unified psychic well. This is actually familiar. It's primordial, it's primitive, and it's necessary. So to kind of give you an example of this in my own life, I used to live in New York City, and I used to go to Pyramid Club. It was a nightclub, sort of gothic, 80s. I used to go every weekend for like 3 or 4 years. And they had this lower level too with fog machines and everything. And there was just like this collective sense of hypnosis, of kind of moving through and sitting with the intensity, letting it kind of seep into you until you hit a nerve, really, that, you forgot about. And it's sort of a primordial instinct to replenish, revive, rejuvenate, and then eventually reawaken. And, when I was there, it was kind of like I wanted to chase down this sort of, again, collective psychic experience that I think we all have access to. And I wasn't really sure what was on the other side, but it just felt like some, again, this process of change was very, very reinvigorating. Because it felt like, at least in my life at that time, that I wasn't satisfied with certain things. And so the only way that I had my outlet at that time was going to Pyramid Club. Now, did that exercise necessarily change me forever? I mean, it kind of did. Long story short, I actually started to discover astrology through these experiences. There was a night at that club in which I got a concussion, and I woke up the next day and just stumbled upon a CBD shop on the Bowery, and they happened to be selling crystals, and I never collected gemstones or crystals at the time. One of them happened to be labradorite. This is labradorite right here, but it wasn't this one. But anyways, I found a small one, stumbled upon it, and that, long story short, was actually kind of a gateway for me to start to pay attention to synchronicities and notice that there is such a thing as symbolic time. So if I hadn't gone to Pyramid Club and started to kind of provoke this internal change, I might not have discovered astrology, right? I might not have, become aware of this, again, instinctive, deeply rooted part of myself that was locked away before. So Scorpio can do that for you. So even if you don't have a Scorpio moon, on this full moon, it is going to give you this ability to, again, probe the depths, shine the light on the room that's been locked for decades. And it's not just a discovery about some event from your past, from your childhood, for example. It can be. But a lot of times Scorpio is giving, and especially with the moon, is giving you access to your ancestry and your family history. And then beneath that, human history, human experience, human suffering, human trauma, human happiness, all this full range of emotion. You're able to access it and sit with it. So that is how powerful it can be for you. Now, because this is an eclipse, it is, and it's very close to the south node, the objective here, again, is purification. We're purging and we're shedding things that previously held us back. And, again, with all the materials that are down there, some of the things that have been holding us back could be tied to past lives, not even our current life. These things, again, these are the instincts that permeate human life and the natural world we inhabit. So this is the collective unconscious that allows for your rebirth, and you can see it everywhere, right? You can see cycles everywhere in your life. The sunset, the sunrise, the week, the days of the week, recycling, everything happens. The seasons, they all happen in cycles. However, there's cognitive dissonance in the present day because, we arbitrarily design, rules, regulations, and then squares, rectangles, which, by the way, don't exist in nature. We sort of concretize everything. And we say something is infallible, something is unbreakable, time honored, something is inveterate. Scorpio is an inescapable purging, though, to that. Again, Pluto and Scorpio saying, no, this is not infallible. This is actually supposed to end. Because the end is the only thing that enables the beginning. And Scorpio is, again, this inescapable purging that, while fear-inducing, returns us to that primal state. And at that moment, we're reminded of its essentialism. And I want to be really clear about this. Fear that you feel when you face the past, when you are reminded of a certain moment, when you feel a sensation that you hadn't felt in a long time, that just triggers a negative memory. that fear that comes in. Fear is an acknowledgement. And that acknowledgement is an impetus for evolution. So now Scorpio is reminding us of the necessity of fear. So fear is not a bad thing. Fear is literally you realizing, okay, there is something deeper. I am not just a superficial layer. I am not just a fragment. I am connected like the roots of trees. I am connected to this network of human experience that is overwhelming, yes, all-encompassing. It's in its totality, but it is powerful and it is transformative. And that is the only way that you can sort of, again, reset and hopefully upgrade your life to be more in tune with who you truly are. And I find it interesting even that, when I'm thinking about my memory of like Pyramid Club, you think about like a pyramid, the way that's designed, it's really only the top of the pyramid that we present. It's really only the top of the pyramid that we present to the world in our everyday lives. But it's almost like I was trying to access the entirety of that pyramid. And those deeper layers encompass so much more surface space, surface area. So even if you think about it mathematically, there is a lot more than meets the eye. And we carry that around, not just, again, on an individual level, but within the, at the altitude of our families, the altitude of our society, our community, everything. This is all wrapped up. And again, these are the ingredients from which we create something new. And, the thing about Scorpio too is that it is fundamentally different from its opposite sign, Taurus, in that Taurus tends to, and I did a TikTok about this, and I mentioned it obviously like kind of, it was a very quick video. So I was really only highlighting one piece, but in all seriousness, Taurus tends to think that they're going to live the average life expectancy. So let's say 80 years in the US. And because of that mindset, Tauruses move through the world patiently, and they take their time and they enjoy the material world, and they realize, this is sufficient. This is important, and I'm just going to cherish it. The things I can see and taste and touch. Scorpio, on the other hand, kind of assumes that there's 0 days left, or it's the 11th hour. Now, not every Scorpio is going to feel exactly literally that way to that extent, but there is a subconscious belief in that shapes a lot of Scorpio behavior. And so Scorpios will try to control certain situations. They will develop coping mechanisms. They will resort to extremes of behavior because, again, there's a desperation there, to be honest with you. So Scorpios sometimes desperately cling to things, and Scorpios oftentimes about possession. Taking other people's resources, taking their money, taking their energy, taking their psychic space. And so that's why Scorpios kind of are vilified oftentimes, even in art and film. You look at the villain, they're oftentimes very Scorpionic because they have this need to possess, and they're obsessed, and they fixate. These are all Scorpio terms. And so the question is, why do we do those things? Why do we attempt to control and possess? Why do we have these coping mechanisms? With Scorpio, oftentimes it's because there's a security deficit. Security or safety was taken away at some point, way, way long ago. And again, this could be current life, could be past lives, could be a generational thing. But Scorpios are aware of that, and so they design their lives to gain it back. So, for example, if a Scorpio checks that the door is locked 3-4 times before they go to bed every night, the question is, why do you do that? Well, they're going to tell you, because I want to feel safe. Why don't you feel safe is the follow-up. That is the $1 million question that every Scorpio has to answer. Why don't you feel safe? And Typically, a Scorpio eventually will get to that answer through any number of means. And so my point, the reason I went through that sequence with you is because that is also very fundamental, to the Scorpio mindset. And with the moon, you can feel that way deep down. You can feel this need, again, for intense bonding experiences to regain security. Now, on the eclipse, everyone has access to that feeling. So whereas someone like me, Scorpio moon, always there's a hidden sense of potential danger, of the need for survival. And when it's introduced to the collective, especially on a full moon, it's possible that a lot of you will feel like it's the 11th hour, like the sort of, the end is near. And that is the process I was talking about earlier of self-awareness, awareness of your depths, of the collective psyche, and the awareness that cycles are essential, that your current identity or something in your life has run its course. And so that fear that you initially feel is just the instinct. It's a very basic instinct, something that any animal can feel. So it starts as fear, and then that fear is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement that something needs to change. Acknowledgement that there are, again, deeper layers to ourselves. And then once we access that, it's a trigger and an impetus for that transmutation. So this can be a very powerful full moon for you if you're willing to, again, follow that fear. Chase that fear a little bit, because that leads to acknowledgement and awareness. And in doing that, you can actually come out the other side more secure and safe in realizing that, again, you're anchored to something deeper than yourself, potentially. So this is almost a moment of compensating for that security deficit. And, the thing about Scorpio too, though, is that sometimes this sign can be, it's really a sign of extremes. It's all or nothing. It's very, again, it's known for its sort of totality, all-encompassing destruction that makes way for reconstruction. So it's not that I'm asking you to, try too hard with this, because I think it happens fairly naturally. It's sort of, it's a sensation that's just received. And so you just want to acknowledge it. And you can also, in the process, as an outcome, untether yourself from toxic situations that are reinforcing outmoded patterns of behavior. And I promise I'm not a therapist right now, but therapy is a very Scorpio thing, right? So we're talking about issues, real issues that you might have, and how they play out in your life. So are there people, toxic people that you associate with? Are there power grabs that you've made? Attempts at control? Whatever that is for you, you can purge that side of yourself. And again, start anew. So I do want to talk about the other pieces of this chart. So not only are you detoxifying and potentially severing ties to, again, you're cutting away parts of yourself that you've outgrown. And I actually do want to emphasize that too. Like, again, some of these things you've repressed, and that again has been holding you back. So like I said, why can't you evolve? I would ask that question to yourself. That's probably like the biggest question this full moon. Why can't you evolve? It's because, again, you're in denial about something. So this full moon is really your chance to confront that, stop being in denial, and again, understand what are those points of toxicity within me? What is driving my fear? And then usually you'll realize that it's just tied so far back to your childhood or maybe even a past life, but it's just primordial. And once you can kind of work with that energy differently, then it's a reset and it's a transformation, and then you're on stronger ground, and that you are much stronger. and actually more authentic to, again, who you are, and you're closer. You have a more intimate knowledge of the human condition. So all that aside, and I know that that was a lot, but I hope that that was useful, because I'm talking about this again as a Scorpio moon, as an astrologer. And so I really wanted you to walk away with, again, a really solid understanding of Scorpio. There's other elements here. So part of this eclipse is kind of daunting. Mars and Saturn are both dominating this chart. So Saturn is squaring the sun and moon and the nodes. Jupiter and the moon are in signs ruled by Mars. When you think about Mars and Saturn, they are the traditional malefics in astrology. And the first point, Saturn squaring this moon and sun, Taurus and Scorpio in this context, again, about survival in some ways, but also about financial matters. And Saturn brings in a very conservative lens to these things, a cautious lens. And maybe is saying, let's stress test our financial system, and maybe this will make people more conservative about money matters and feeling like maybe the economy is not on solid ground. So I wouldn't be surprised if the markets experience some type of turmoil. So there's sort of a synchronicity here, or maybe people, again, psychologically are feeling a little bit turbulent inside as they face these demons, which I talked about. Maybe the markets are experiencing a little bit of turmoil as they understand that there's something dysfunctional about how we trade or our financial system. And maybe, subconsciously, there needs to be a reset. So I'm not like a fear monger, and I'm not a financial advisor. So I'm not mongering fear at all, but I just want to emphasize that, based on the symbolism of Saturn and the moon and the sun in these positions, there is a chance of some type of financial purging. And Saturn in Aquarius could even be a setback or a gridlock on the internet, like some type of digital breakdown. And again, I'm not really going to speculate on exactly what that would be, but there certainly could be a digital sort of trigger to that. So anyways, it's really about frustration and gridlock in that case. But with the nodes, it's also feeling stuck between the past and the future. So feeling like, we have to, again, let go of something from our past with Scorpio on the south node, but also with the north node where the sun is, realizing, okay, these are our new value systems. This is where we need to go. And then Saturn sitting in the middle of saying, okay, I want you to really concentrate on and evaluate and focus on what exactly do I need to let go of and what exactly do I want to become. And that's that's gridlock, because Scorpio is not rational. It's total, it's all encompassing, it's all consuming, right? So it's like it's like a fire purifying. And then Saturn in Aquarius is saying, no, let's be logical and think through and compartmentalize, the information involved. And again, Scorpio is not going to do that. Taurus isn't going to do that. So this is extreme gridlock. And I'm not sure what exactly is going to happen, but eventually something has to give. So this could create a little bit of a destructive energy. Now, in terms of rulership, Pluto and Mars rule this eclipse. Pluto is retrograding Cap, trining the sun, so there's actually a little bit of determination and empowerment to change, which I like on that side of the equation. Mars in Pisces is conjunct Neptune and trining the moon. Now that is also very complicated, because Mars is really our ego to act on from a selfish point of view, to create. Ideally it has a direction to it that's advancing our needs. The problem with that is that it's conjunct Neptune, which is very egoless and selfless. So what could that mean? Maybe it's just very much about disseminating information in the media. Maybe it's about reinforcing this theme of letting go. But this Mars placement is very confused. Even if it's trining the moon, it's still very confused in Pisces. Just kind of wading through this sensitive, subtle energy and saying, well, I want to push forward my agenda. And Neptune in Pisces is saying, no, you have to think about the collective. So there's almost like a collective ending that's occurring here, not just an individual ending, but a collective ending. And maybe this would somehow sort of again reinforce these Scorpio themes of being in tune with the subcurrents of our psyche. Now, there's also a Venus Chiron conjunction. This places the spotlight on women's health, women's issues, and obviously, there was in the U.S. the leak of this Roe v. Wade decision, and that is, I think, going to continue. That is going to unfold further on this total eclipse. So, especially with Mars conjunct Neptune, in Pisces, it just feels like there's some type of further dissemination of information. And I don't think it's going to add clarity, because Neptune tends to delude people or bring in confusion. So I think there's going to be conflicting information coming out, maybe from people with different opinions trying to justify certain things, or people even feeling like they want to take up a cause and defend their position, because Mars conjunct Neptune and Pisces can have a very humanitarian perspective, actually, if in the higher expression of it. So this could be a reason for people to go out and vouch, right, and really fight for a society that is like for the betterment of society, that can protect women's rights. So there actually might be a bit of a crusade type of energy here of like, let's fight for women's rights, and feeling compassionate towards, like that we can all relate to the dire situation that we have on our hands. So, but on a personal level, this could be drama in personal relationships, feeling even unloved, or addressing insecurities, which could kind of dovetail with the Scorpio moon. So feeling, like we need to find acceptance from someone so badly that it's like, well, shouldn't we accept ourselves first? So this could actually be a nice trigger for self-acceptance, reinforcing boundaries, reducing codependencies, because that's what Venus in Aries actually thrives with. Even though Venus is debilitated in this sign, there still is a positive, which is that, again, we are independent. So, but again, you do want to be cautious of not feeling too defensive with your partner or around other people. And like I said on TikTok recently, with Venus in Aries, you actually want to kind of have a competitive outlet. So play sports with people, go hiking, play a board game, anything like that. So next we have Jupiter in Aries. So this is an interesting, way to mix things up. So Jupiter was in Pisces since late December, and now that it's entered Aries, where it will be for the next year and change, this is actually a burst of motivation and an increase in courage, and believing that we can and should prioritize ourselves. So that for you, this is a new beginning, a new journey, a new adventure, a new process of self-discovery. Now, it's not about individuation. That's more of an Aquarius thing. We're not like at this complex stage of like, we know where we fit in society, now we're going to break away and progress. Aries is the first sign. So it's more about the self on a very fundamental level. And it's about a new journey, especially with Jupiter being about travel and expansion. So Jupiter in Aries is more like, I'm going to start my own adventure, my own course, whatever that may be for you. And, it might be the beginning of something, a vast new life path. Because again, Aries is a fresh start. So Jupiter can give you a fresh start. And again, the courage maybe to chase down these Scorpio themes. Again, the underworld of your psyche, right? So I think there's courage to do that, but then to bring it back to the Roe v. Wade element, Jupiter, the law, Aries is willing to sort of act on behalf of certain beliefs and laws and fight for those beliefs. So I do think that there's going to be a lot of people, coming out of the woodwork, again, to argue vehemently for a position on this. So it's just going to get heated up. And elsewhere in the world, geopolitically, Aries is the god of war. So Jupiter, it could be people traveling to go defend some kind of cause. So I think Jupiter in Aries is really going to kickstart this very long-awaited sort of. I mean, there's just gonna be a lot more passion, and that passion was largely missing while we had this sort of deluge of Pisces. So, and that's another element with this full moon, is that maybe it actually wakes us up to the reality and the uncomfortable truths that we've been hiding from with all the Pisces. So I called the new moon, the eclipse in Taurus, the ultimate mirage. And I feel really good about that take. Because if you look at what happened on April 30th, nothing really happened. And, I kind of anticipated that. Not to say that Scorpio and Taurus placements don't have to prepare for change. I talked about that on TikTok. And they do. This change is still happening. But in terms of the actual eclipse, the new moon was very, very kind of calm. Mostly it was Pisces and Taurus. And that was kind of, to me, just the end of the beginning, right? Like, where it's just, we are kind of in denial. And this eclipse is the end of denial. It's like, okay, you wanna escape and enlighten yourself and transcend and do all this cute stuff. Well, here's the truth about what you've been running away from. So Scorpio is that investigator saying, inside your mind, saying, no, you haven't done enough. There's something you're ignoring. It's in the room. It's been in the room for 10 years. Now let's excavate. And at a society level, this could be about digging up secrets. So revelations. And the full moon in general always, remember, is a revelation and illumination. It's translating the creative power of the sun. It's a mediator between the sun and the earth. And it's telling us down on earth, here's the message. So what is the full moon message? Again, it's about removing blockages to evolution. So Jupiter in Aries, Mars conjunct Neptune in Pisces, going back to that. Again, I see this increase in sort of this crusade. It's going to trigger this crusade in a broader discussion around, I think, laws and rights. And then Mercury in Gemini, retrograde. Gemini, even though it's retrograde, Mercury in Gemini is comfortable with ambiguity. So maybe that also can play into the Scorpio eclipse. We can be a functional member of society, but we can also be in tune with the darker forces inside of ourselves. So 2 more things here. Mars, Neptune, and Pisces, I think will support this letting go, shedding, releasing. And then, to quickly touch on Biden's chart. I talked about this on the eclipse, the Taurus eclipse, but the full moon is happening in his 12th house. So just re-emphasizing that May 15th, 16th, there could be some type of announcement or revelation about his health, whether it's physical health or mental health. Can't really say. But it's just worth noting more so than most times. So do pay attention to that. And just to close off with this final thought, what exactly does a Scorpio moon mean now in 2022? So as astrologers, we always talk about things in the, we use these very timeless archetypes, and that's great. And that's important because astrology reminds us that everything is cyclical. Everything is, every particular instance of something maps back to a universal projection of it. So, but I do want to emphasize this. For most, we largely do not live in a society that supports a lot of scorpionic themes in everyday life, in our everyday lives, right? So what happens is the vast majority of people go through this process of, they're a child, they're tied into their instincts, they say prophetic things, they might even remember past lives, they're talking to trees, whatever. And then that's quickly stamped out by, various people that are raising us to say, this is not how the world works. You have to get in line. You have to follow the orders. You have to be orderly. You have to be rational. And so we shut out those very instinctive, primordial aspects of ourselves, right? And then we grow up and we mature. So because of that repression, we live in a society that basically we have to live out those Scorpio themes vicariously through the culture. So when you look at a lot of every movie, when you look at what sells online, when you look at people who are popular on social media, 9 times out of 10, there is some element of a Scorpionic theme in there. And if you just look at Scorpio themes, right, we're dealing with things like death. We're dealing with sex. We're dealing with, just a lot of dark, mysterious activity. And people are drawn to that because they don't have access to it anymore. Or it's played out in the financial industry with like hedge funds and extremities of power. Just extreme power. And guess what? A lot of people are fascinated by it, and they actually kind of enjoy witnessing it, even if they're not the ones with the money, because they just want, again, a return to that part of themselves that was lost, not of their own volition, that was taken away in a lot of ways. So again, Scorpio is about possession. We're trying to bring back this psychic energy, this subterranean force that was pulled, or that was just completely shut down. And that's why I think a Scorpio total lunar eclipse in 2022 is a lot more chaotic than a Scorpio lunar eclipse, let's say, in like a prehistoric society. Because we have largely phased out. Again, the bottom of that pyramid that lives inside all of us. So that's why I'm a little concerned. I'm a little bit concerned about this eclipse, because I don't know how people can handle the heightened awareness of that shadow side, of that monster within themselves. Again, we always watch it every day. We watch it. We watch it. We play it on repeat. We hear it in music. We hear it, and that's fine, right? I love music. I'm a musician. But it's like when you sort of unlock that, is the evolution going to play out the way that it should? And you could argue that all evolution is essential. Again, like I said at the beginning, cycles are essential. But I do sometimes wonder if there's a point at which it becomes an unnatural process, where everything in life now is so synthetic that the necessity of Scorpio here is saying, no, there's a lot of things you haven't checked in on. If those things haven't been checked in on in your entire life, then how are you going to react? Are you going to be equipped to actually evolve? I don't know the answer to that. But hopefully, by watching this video, I'm giving you, again, a little bit of a preview so that you can start to tune yourself in. Even if you don't have a lot of water in your chart, just try. Just tune it in. What am I actually trying to say to myself here? How do I really feel about this situation or this person? You just want to be honest with yourself, and again, you'll eventually stumble upon those raw materials. But hopefully you can kind of lead up to it a little bit, right, and crescendo a little before the full moon. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this very long and special edition of my full moon forecast. But hopefully this goes well for you. I'm really curious to hear how it goes, so please drop your feelings and thoughts into the comments, and I will reply. Thank you.